Hey, Gazoo, are you sleeping? Gazoo, are you sleeping? Are you sleep? Oh, sorry, buddy, I didn't know you were sleeping. Sorry about that. My bad. Now my dog's out. All right, okay. So anyway, World War III update. Animals interrupting my... You can't even plan that. Anyway, okay, so George Bush did a really, really horrible job. He did a horrible job. He didn't finish what he started. Ew, thank you. I mean, he leaves Iraq intact, okay? There's still people left alive. He didn't kill them all. Like, what's... So now Obama has to finish the job. I mean, geez. Like, think about that, you know. Thank God we got a Nobel Peace Prize winner out there to make sure that they're going to, well, you know, even though Obama says, you know, we don't really think bombing is going to be the answer. We're not going to put troops on the ground. They're going to have to work it out for themselves. This is great. But we're still going to bomb the snot balls out of them anyway. Thank God for a Democrat in the office over there. Yeah, it's sarcasm. I mean, why do they hate these poor people so much? Like, oh, but they're terrorists over there. Yeah, but they're over there. You know, it is... I agree with Obama. Yes, that's what I've been saying all along. You have to let them work it out for themselves. So while they're trying to work it out for themselves, why the heck are you bombing the crap out of them? How about you just let things settle down? But you see, that's not the point of it. What's going on in Iraq about ISIS? Number one, and you almost get the truth out of the mainstream media where they're saying, well, the weapons are pretty much American-made weapons that the ISIS guys pretty much stole from the Iraqi military that was trained by the U.S. military. You remember what I talked about in previous videos about training the people you got to fight in the future? Well, these are those people, you know. So anyway, long story short, they're basically admitting, well, I mean, question number one is, why did the Iraqi military just basically step aside and allow these people to take the weapons? Simple, because they were in on it on the whole. There was never a plan for peace there. It's all tribal wars. It's never going to change. And if it does change, it will only change if those people finally get it that they don't have to be killing each other. But that said, you know, should we just do nothing? What about the women and children? Okay, you got terrorist group A killing these group of people over here. That's bad enough. Now, let's add some JDAMs, democracy JDAMs in between that. It's Iraq, Afghanistan is an apocalyptic place to live. Like, a lot of people say, you know, the apocalypse is coming. No, it's already here. It's just not everywhere, but it's in a lot of... Most people around the world are living in Mad Max kind of conditions. You know, the majority of the planet lives in Mad Max kind of conditions. Not peace, not law and order, Mad Max, survival of the fittest, survival of the cruelest. That's what most people live under. Afghanistan is a tough country. It's a hard country. It's never really known true peace in a way. You go back thousands of years, there's always been tribal wars. However, they did have points up until the 1970s where most of these Middle Eastern countries, you know, hated each other in peace, and only when one group would cross the line in territory of another that they would shoot at each other. But now it's just everywhere. It's everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And again, it's all death cults, basically. It doesn't matter what name you give them, Al-Qaeda, ISIS. And basically, Al-Qaeda turned into Al-Nusra Front, which was the Free Syrian Army, which basically hijacked the Free Syrian Army and killed those guys off. And, you know, and then because Al-Nusra Front started becoming too Al-Qaeda-like, they basically changed their name to ISIL and ISIS, and now it's the Islamic Republic, or the Islamic State is what they call it. So they keep changing it, but it's really the majority of them are the same guys that are running around. Yes, there's different factions. There's the Sunnis, there's the Shiites, you have Alawites, you have Wahhabists, you have, you know, there's about 20 different types of Muslim, you know, tribes out there or more that are usually, but usually the Sunni Shiite one is the big one. You know, there's the Kurds, there's but they're all basically, they're all really the same people. They just have a different spin on the Quran and whatever have you, and how they pray is slightly different. But it's like the difference between, you know, Christian and, I don't know, Christian and, you know, whatever spin-off religions from Christianity. And, you know, newborn religion, you know, like, you know, United, Trinity, all those different churches and stuff. They're basically praying to the same thing, but they're praying it a little different. Now, that, and the tribal part of it is basically land claim. Basically, that's the tribal part of it. So that's where a lot of this fighting has come from. It's tribal wars, and that can only be worked out amongst the tribes. An example would be back here in Canada. Pre 500 years ago, before the white man got here, there was all kinds of tribal wars. In fact, at one point there was over 600 or almost close to 1,000 different native languages in this country. And one tribe would absorb another. For example, the Crow and the Inuit never got along. The Algonquin and the Huron never got along. That type of thing. And there's still bad blood between some of these tribes, but they're not killing each other anymore. They've worked things out. But they worked things out. They worked out, okay, let's have peace between the tribes because just don't cross our territory. We'll establish an arbitrary line on a map and call it a territory. We'll call it tribal territory, whatever. And that's what the natives did here. And the ones that didn't do that, well, they wiped each other out, one way or another. So what happened here is basically what they need to do there. Is the native groups here, many of them, banded together and it became bigger and stuff like that. But they worked it out so that they weren't killing each other all the time. The most noticeable one would be probably the Huron and the Algonquin. They're the ones that were fighting when the white man got here. In fact, the first trade deal was pretty much Daniel de Champlain shooting Huron tribal chiefs to be able to do trade with the Algonquin. That was one of the deals they had. And that was also probably some of the first firearms to come into the country. So things had bad, things did things the wrong way. People, there's examples everywhere. However, in this day and age, the rate at which people can kill each other is unfathomable, with bombs and stuff like that. But the formula is still the same. These tribes have to work it out together. So how do you keep these tribes from working it out? Well, number one, keep dropping bombs, in between them. So when, they don't even take the time to do a drone strike and figure out who they're striking. They just strike people that look of the age and stuff. So they don't know if that part of the tribe is the good guy or the bad guy. They just basically bomb whoever. Now, with that said, they're just going to call them all ISIS, but they're probably bombing. When they bomb both sides, it's just basically it keeps it going because these two never get a chance to talk, and you're not uniting with one side or the other, which you shouldn't be anyway. And if Obama paid as much attention to his own country as he does to the Middle East, boy, that country would be maybe it's for the best because he's destroyed so many other countries. So, what are you barking at, goof? Nobody there. Crazy dog. But anyway, thing is that he's pretty much told you, okay, look, we're in for the long haul. But why? We're going to just bomb them until they could figure it out for themselves. What kind of solution is that? That's not a solution. I'll tell you what this is. And this goes back to what he said. What are you barking at? There's nothing out there to bark at anyway, you barky face. And don't you bark, not even once. Not even once. She just barked. She doesn't listen to me. I didn't know what she's barking at. Anyway, the whole point of this, okay, is you have to understand, when Russia said, okay, you know what, we're going to give this new, the Afghanistan president, we're going to give you some frog foots, we're going to give you some, maybe possibly MiG-29s and a few, some other equipment. This, again, is a thumb in the eye from Putin to Obama, and basically helping out the Afghanis to, and I'm not saying the Russians are saints in this is obviously not a good thing. I mean, again, we're just giving people means to kill each other. Again, you take the weapons away, or you just don't supply them with the weapons, you know what I mean? They're both armed enough that they can kill each other at a certain pace, but if you give them better weapons, they're going to kill each other faster. So just don't give them weapons. If you want peace, you don't add more weapons into the mix. So the point here is that the Americans have changed, or the Obama administration has changed its mind about giving F-16s to the Afghanis, and whether and if they do it, they won't get them before October or late September, early October, that type of thing. From what I heard. Now that said, the Russians already say, well, the Prime Minister or President of Afghanistan said, we need the stuff now. We can't wait till then. So the Russians say, okay, we'll do it for you. So. Well, again, this is Putin coming in and kind of offering solutions to, the world crisis. And what that's going to do is screw up the American plan of destabilization in the region, because what will happen is if these Afghanis do get it, they will wipe out the other side pretty quick. And if they do, it will stabilize the region. Okay? They can't have that. They have to keep it going. So what they're going to use this for, and Obama already, these psychopaths have to tell you what they're going to do. Like they said, look, Assad's days are numbered. Assad won the election. That is a big thumb in the eye of the Obama administration, saying, hey, we got to overthrow Assad. He's such a dictator. And Assad's a horrible man. I mean, there's no good guys here. This is the problem most people can't think critically about. They figure they have to side with, if it's Palestinians, you have to side with Palestinians, or you have to side with the Israelis. No, they're both doing the wrong thing. It's you have to side with the Shiite or you have to side with the Sunnis. No, they're both doing the wrong thing. You have to side with the American government or the Russian government. No, they're both doing the wrong thing. Those are the only two I really worry about, them and China. I only worry about nuclear powers. Why? Because they can shoot at each other all day. You can keep that at bay, but it's the nukes, that's what I worry about. And at the end of the day, this really does become another proxy war. How it becomes a proxy war is that Putin is basically eliminating the destabilization by arming the Afghani Air Force or whatever. That helps to destabilize or stabilize the region because they're killing off these ISIS guys. There's only about 5,000-6,000 of them. Maybe a little bit more now because it grows, but there's only that many of them. So it won't take a long time to really put a hurt on these guys. So what they need to do, what the Americans are doing, they're bombing those guys, but here's the problem. They're going to bomb them into Syria. This has been the plan all along. Get into Syria. Why? Because when you get into Syria, you can get into Iran. When you get into Iran, you can surround China. When you can surround China, that's when they get into Iran. At that point, if they haven't been stopped, that's the point where we get into the thermonuclear war. It could be a couple of years out. It could be this year. It could be next year. We don't know. They're crazy. They're complete insane people. At that point, they must be stopped at all. I'm talking. Because unfortunately there's pilots out there that just follow orders. Unfortunately there's soldiers out there that just follow orders and do not think critically. Which, yes, you need a loyal military. Problem is when you have a foreign entity in charge of your military, or using a global military force, i.e. NATO, this, I don't know, like, these people are amazing actors. How does, I think Rasputin is his name, the head of NATO, come out there and tell Putin, do not use geopolitical crisis and peacekeeping as a means to waging war. That's exactly what NATO does. And he says this with a straight face. I can't. Like, that's probably why I'm no good at playing poker. That's why I'm no good at lying. It's because I can't do it with a straight face. That's scary, But anyway, with that said, what the whole point of this, and Obama's, look, he's told us, this is a long-term thing. I thought this Peace Prize, again, war is peace, peace is war. The New World Order newspeak is basically 2 + 2 can make 5. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. You know what I mean? Like, nothing makes sense, right? Question. Make everything a Picasso puzzle is the New World Order mentality. The idea is to confuse people, and it's typically the people more on the left that get more easily confused on it. I know I bash on them a bit, but it's usually them that they can't see that it's the government. And the ones that do, they usually become more moderate. It's the moderates in the center that need to really hold together. The people that can think critically, they might think a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right, but when they realize both sides are doing something wrong, left and right doesn't matter. Okay? And that's kind of where I'm trying to take it from, is that, yes, I do tend to be more on the right, but I can tell you when both sides are doing wrong. And I will not say George Bush was a bad guy and then give Obama a reigning endorsement when he's George Bush 2.0 on steroids. He's finishing George Bush's job. So, new boss the same as the old boss, right? Now, again, long term, what does long term mean? It means they're going to bomb the snotballs out of these people who are going to go, because Jordan's holding together by a thread. I mean, that's where most of these guys were trained. That's not on the mainstream media. They don't tell you that most of these guys, just watch the video footage. You'll see a lot of AK-47s and stuff like that, but you're going to start seeing a lot of M16s, American-made equipment. Oh, yeah, but that just came from the Iraqi army. No, it didn't. A lot of that came from Syria. Who? The Syrian rebels. Free Syrian Army, or El Nusra Front. Good Al-Qaeda, bad Al-Qaeda. You got evidence of John McCain out there with Al-Qaeda leaders. Oh, no, that's a Free Syrian Army. Those are the good Al-Qaeda. The slap in the face of every person who served. And here's the thing, and this is, I can't stress enough. For those of you out there who think that to serve your country is patriotic, well, then you have to understand what patriotism is. It's defend your country, not to go and die for bankers. And this is all about banking. This is all about global control. But the thing is these people are willing to push to the extreme levels of insanity to a thermonuclear war. They think they can just go into their bunkers and then come back and restart the system again after a couple of years. If that ever happens, if anybody on the outside survives, those bunkers will be their tubes because people are going to weld the doors shut. They're not coming out. And if anything comes out of there, it's going to be turned into Swiss cheese. There is no way these people are going to get out of this alive if they do that. But we will be, at that point, into a new dark ages. You'll have to find old books of Marconi and how he set the first signal across the, and start reading up on Thomas Edison, just to be able to get the basic. And oh yes, the Stirling engine, just so you understand the basic mechanics. So at least we can go back, not to the medieval dark ages or from the medieval times, but we can at least go back to the 1800s. And from the 1800s, within 100 years, we'll be back up to where we are now. You know, because we got the head start of, at least we knew what technology to go after and look for. Kind of a scary thought, but kind of just putting into, you know, planting the seed for those who watch my videos. Kind of, you know, think that far. Again, we could have a war tomorrow. We could have a war 10 years from now. Just be prepared for anything. That's all I'm saying. But again, if we go back to 2010 and look at Obama's big kind of turn with the NDAA and the NDRP, if you're an American and you're watching this, never mind the NDAA. That's the distraction. Yes, sections 1021 and 1022 are big violations of human rights. But the entire NDRP that was signed on St. Patrick's Day in 2010 is the one that implemented the draft. It's the biggest power grab in history, and it covers all countries. In other words, in a martial law situation or a crisis situation, the U.S. government has given itself the authority to be able to take resources from any country in the world, and they are willing to take your country without compensation. Your business, everything will be war effort, and there you go. But most importantly, the draft is enacted, and now women can serve on the front line. You think that was about equality? No, that's because less men are signing up, and they're going to need these people when they're fighting the Russians and the Chinese. Now, if we're getting into Syria this year, I say we're into Iran by end of 2015. Iran by the end of 2015 is massive destabilization that's going to happen between Iran and China, because that's how they're going to kick it off. I think what they're probably going to do for China to get a proxy war going, and China's going to end up doing this anyway, is they're going to get into a war with India over water resources, because China's completely destroyed its environment. India's not really that much better. It's a pretty, toxic environment. If you look at all the birth defects in India, again, these places are true capitalist markets in the sense that there's no rules or regulations. They could pour PCBs in the water. They just tell people to burn the water before you drink it. Yeah, you don't boil it, you burn it. You burn off all the sour gas before you drink it. That type of thing. So eventually that's going to come to a head at some point. It's a resource war. What you are witnessing globally now is a resource war. As the currency war ramps up, it turns into a resource war very quickly. And why it turns into a resource war is very simply, the US dollar is collapsing. You might as well say it's done. It's lost 90% of its value in under 100 years. And it's lost about 40% of its value in only the past 30 or 40. So when you think about it that way, what that means is this dollar is no longer buying what it used to be able to buy. Meaning, when the new paradigm come in, which is coming in at full steam, and not over in a decade's time, but in the past couple of months, we see the yuan renminbi, the Chinese currency, pretty much making, going everywhere and doing trade deals everywhere. That will be the next superpower in that sense. Problem is that the Chinese are too corrupt to be able to pull this off for a very long amount of time. However, with that said, that's when you have to own resources. This is why environmental laws are designed to keep people from opening businesses. This is why environmental laws, which are not all bad, don't get me wrong, you do need some environmental laws. But, for example, if our governments around the world, the first world governments, really believed in a clean planet, what they would do is not sign on to things like NAFTA or the TTP, which is basically NAFTA on steroids coming up. Basically, all they've done is said, we're not going to pollute our countries anymore. We're going to make green air, or have green air and clean air, and we're going to send all our smog and everything over into third world countries, and they don't have to comply to any emissions. But we're all on the same planet, so eventually that crap comes over here. A nuclear plant blows up in Japan, yeah, we're going to feel it over here eventually. It's all the same planet. These people don't think that, like, well, even if they do get it, they're just greedy. They're psychopaths. So again, these people must be put in jail. They have to be stopped. The Obama administration has to be stopped. The Putin administration has to be stopped. You have to get the Rothschilds, the George Soroses, the Jamie Dimons, the Rockefellers, the Kissingers, all these, Maurice Stroud, the whole works, the Al Gore types, the other philanthropists like the Bill Gates. You have to get those people locked up for crimes against humanity. One charge each, something that you can guarantee will stick. We need brave law enforcement, military to actually press these charges, and we need very tough as nails prosecutors and judges to do this, and a non-paid-off jury. Because if the rule of law fails, and you could just track it through the world, again, 90% of the world, maybe not 90%, but I'd say probably out of all the countries, I'd say at least 60% of them are living in Mad Max apocalyptic. Some of them are always like that, but right now, just about every country's in a Mad Max kind of scenario. No man's land. Do you want that here? Well, it's coming here. We're getting that no matter what. The trick is do we restart the system with a nuclear war, or do we restart the system letting things collapse, building it up through entrepreneurship, and putting the corrupt people in jail and holding people accountable, i.e. politicians? And, of course, big banks, the banksters. So right now, the whole thing that's going on with, ISIS. Again, ISIS is run by a Mossad agent. The guy is Mossad. Maybe it's a Mossad agent that had a change of conscience. I mean, you had Mossad agents in Ukraine. You had, and it's all the same faction. The Soros faction is the Israeli lobby. The neocons are the Israeli lobby. Okay, the Goldman Sachs, IMF are the Rothschild, places, and they're all linked. They're just different factions, but they're all working as that. They say the world is controlled by about 6,000 people, and that are movers and shaker. But if you really say about who is the top people at the top, it's probably less than 50 people that make the decisions for the world. Central planners, non-government NGOs, non-government organizations. And it's these non-government organizations that create most of this destabilization. So, with that said, I mean, if they're bombing Iraq again, okay, and again, where are all the Democrats out there saying, hey, you know what, let's impeach this guy, let's just get him out of there. Impeachment, you need criminal charges. He doesn't just need to lose his job. He needs to go to jail for the rest of his life. And that's where you start, and then you work backwards from the lobby groups that that he's pandering to. And then from the lobby groups, you figure out who is, who's in charge. Basically, start with George Soros. Start with Jacob Rothschild and work your way down. You start at the top. You don't, it's like these people that get arrested for drugs, and they say, okay, well, we're going to arrest the small guy, okay, and if you tell us, rat out the big guy, we'll give you less sentence. Well, all you do is end up having the small fish in jail. You go after the big fish. Al Capone was convicted on one thing, racketeering. But is that all he did? No, he did everything. He did all kinds of stuff. But that's the only thing they could get him on. What I'm saying is pick one of these people, get them on one thing, but just nail them to the wall. We need justice. We need law and order restored, and we don't have law and order right now. We have fascism or crony capitalism, which should be really recalled crony fascism, because that's what it is. It's not capitalism. Capitalism, there's no rules. China is capitalist in the sense of how it runs its business, but the businesses are state-owned, so it's communist, fascist in that sense. But however, they run on capitalistic rules where there is no rules, and that's how they make their money. Same with Cuba. Same with they always use the capitalism to float the communism. But the thing is the communism there is to keep the people from prospering. That's it. There's show me a prosperous communist country. There isn't any. The people, people, and you'll get these odd people. Have you ever been to China? No. How would you know the people there? They live good. They got better wages. Depends where you are in China. You don't want to be a member of Falun Gong in China. You know what I'm saying? And some of the mountainous regions, those people get shot at on a regular basis. You don't want to live there. And you never see the one of 130 to 150,000 protests per year that usually end up with people dead. But that stuff is starting to come out of China. That stuff is starting to come out of China. It will be exposed. But You have to understand that China is a blueprint for the world under these New World Order guys. And the thing is these factions are fighting. There's a lot of paradigms that are fighting. There's a lot of factions that are fighting. And they don't care about us little people caught in the center. But the goal is to either have everybody live like Saudi Arabia or live like China. And that's why they're after the gun rights. That's why they're after the right to freedom of speech. That's why in the States, the Common Core is rewriting the Constitution for kids to learn so that everything is a privilege, not a right. That government is your new God. And government is your new way of thinking. And if you go speak against the government, you're either a lunatic or crazy or whatever. However, the thing is it's not going to work because nobody can control that much. But radical begets radical. If you have radical government, you will have radical citizens. That's proven around the world. So the thing is we want to avoid that. Hence, law must be upheld at all times. And the people that we need the most right now are not stepping up to the plate. The law enforcement, the military, they need to basically say, okay, look, these people have created laws that are not just. They hurt the people. They go against the Constitution. We're going to arrest you. A coup needs to happen in the States. It needs to happen peacefully, but that can only happen peacefully if law and order is upheld. If not, you will have a very bloody revolutions. And revolutions, I'd rather just hit the reset button, go back to the way it was, than to go through a revolution, because revolutions are unpredictable. South America is proof of that. Communist dictators, cartels, and revolutionaries. That's what South America is. If you want to live in that kind of Mad Max kind of world, fine. And all you people that are preppers that think you're going to bug out to South America, according to Joe Scalzo, that might not be a good idea, because the kidnappings, no matter how poor you think you are, you could go to Mexico with nothing on you, okay? And some South American country, Honduras, Guatemala, any one of those places, or El Salvador, you're going to end up dead. Why? Because of the color of your skin. They view white people as rich, period. It don't matter if you're living in a cardboard box. You have more than them. It's not being racist, that's just being real. I mean, people get kidnapped down there like crazy. Most violent places criminally on the planet, that's basically El Salvador, Honduras, and then I guess Guatemala would be number 3. These are the most dangerous places in South America you could possibly move. The only other places that are more dangerous are war zones such as Syria, Iraq, pick most of Africa, But there's no place safe. This is the problem with bugging out. This is why people will say, well, Rich, you gripe a lot about the gun laws in your area. Why don't you move to this province? It's a lot more better. You don't understand. When you move away, the communism will follow you. You have to fight where your feet are. You have to stand up for your rights wherever you are. Because if you don't, by the time you've moved away, it's gotten worse. By the time it catches up to you, it's almost unstoppable. And this is why you have to stand and fight now, not later. Don't wait till it gets bad. Unfortunately, most will wait till it gets bad. I make these videos to wake people up. I make these videos in the hopes that law enforcement and military do watch. And I pray that Secret Service agents and stuff like that would, I'm over-flattering myself right now, but would watch something like this and maybe say, maybe I should be questioning what I'm doing. Well, if we're spying on you and you're doing nothing, you shouldn't have anything to worry. If you're doing nothing wrong, you don't need to worry. But is that the right question to be asking yourself? If you believe in a true free society, if you're doing nothing wrong, what's wrong with getting a warrant? Why are you spying on people that haven't done anything yet? Why are you using a dragnet? Why are you using pre-crime? Well, this is what Russia does. This is what China does. This is what North Korea does. You see what I mean? China and the United States, there's almost, the only difference right now is the fact that the people are still armed. But they've lost almost all the rights that the Chinese have lost. Okay? And with these bombings that are going on, okay, they're almost guaranteed, maybe they won't, but you can almost guarantee, because the plan is to get into Syria. The plan is to get into Iran. Because when they give you that argument about crimes against humanity and we have to stop it at all costs, okay, so we're going into North Korea tomorrow morning to stop the atrocities? It's never about the people. It's about the resources. If you control the resources, you control the gold, you control the currencies. You can tell people what currencies you can buy things in. This is what the threat in Libya is really about. This is what the threat, these ISIS guys are kind of selling the oil in other means than the US dollar. So you don't really have to what they're more after is the resources. They're not after they're not there to save the people. I mean, after what, almost 15 years of war there now. I mean, they took a couple of months break, which was really nice, really nice, yeah. And then they're back to it again. So, with that said, what is it? The poppy fields are safe in Afghanistan. The oil rigs are safe usually. It's about the resources, because if you control the resources, your Warren Buffett types, they're sitting there, yeah, tax the rich. Oh no, the economy's fine. However, I'm going to start dumping all my U.S. dollars and buying resources so that when the new paradigm comes in, I make money off the resources. And money or resources is the same thing. It's control. So all these guys out there, they're all a bunch of scumbags anyway. And the thing is they didn't do it fair and open competition capitalistically. No, they did it through crony fascism and governmental fascism. That's the way they've done it. They got the laws to favor the big corporations and shut down all the mom and pop shops. It's control. That's why there are no good jobs here, because there's no entrepreneurs. People, too big to fail, too big to jail. Are you kidding me? We must restore law and order. We must. Because if we don't, the alternative is Mad Max world everywhere. And trust me, if you think that, Department of Homeland Security is going to be there to save people, no, they're there to protect the establishment. That's it. Many of these agents are probably starting to get this. But there's always the ones that, well, my family's got to eat, that type of thing. You always have those types in there. And because you have those types, they will just follow orders. You hear that all the time. You hear it all the time. And you always hear that other thing followed up. We never thought that could happen here because this is a nice place. And that's usually, that's usually synonymous in history, that you hear that. And the biggest crime in history is when good people do nothing. Now, the thing is the problem is the DHS, and the NSA and stuff like that, they don't really, and I'm not making any threats, it's just, the way I'm thinking is like, okay, yes, they are right. The number one threat to them will be returning vets and ex-law enforcement military, because those are the people that have the training to actually take them on. But they don't realize the apocalyptic Mad Max kind of doomsday Hail Hydra guys that are coming after them. We've already seen a glimpse of what they're going to look like. And if you are not a Canadian, maybe you didn't hear about this, but about a month or so ago, 3 RCMP officers here were shot by a guy who today did not contest for a trial. He said, yeah, I did it, and I targeted them. He didn't tell you why, but he's committed to his cause. He's basically, have you ever seen the movie Captain America, the Hydra, run by the Red Skull? These soldiers, they die for the cause. They're extremely loyalist to the cause, and there's only one way to deal with a loyalist. You pretty much got to kill them. That's what jihadists are. They're loyalists, And the thing is they will do anything for the cause. Well, this Justin Burke guy, he's what will be challenging the NSA, the Department of Homeland Security, and there's going to be tens of thousands, possibly even 1 million of them. Possibly, because it will get infectious. These guys, you will not want to, you can't reason with them, you cannot bargain with them, it's kill or be killed at that point. And when these guys do start wiping out the DHS agents, which they will. The DHS, oh yeah, but we got surveillance and we got drones. Drones run out of fuel after 24 hours or 36 hours. So yeah, they got a good thing. And, one nice thing about being a pilot, okay, you can fly around, you can maneuver around things. When you're sitting, do you think about this logically? If you know that there's a guy down the street that is a drone pilot, what is going to happen to his family when he goes to work? Is his family going to be allowed to, live on a secure base? I don't think so. Okay, what is going to happen to all the military bases when they're surrounded by the Hydra? Just basically doomsday call. They will not be able to get food in there. They will not be able to get, whatever they have in there, that's what they're going to have to fight with. Do you think an NSA building isn't going to get mortar shelled? That grid goes down right away. Look, 3 guys attack a power grid in California with AK-47s, and that put, a big damper on the hydro there for a good while. Tens of thousands of these guys come out. You are living beyond Thunderdome in the apocalypse. Mad Max will rule. And that's why we need to, people say, well, how would you know this is going to happen? Because that's what's happening in Iraq right now. They're living in the apocalypse. They know that. These ISIS guys, these are the Mad Max guys. These are the Hell Hydra guys. These are the guys that I said were going to come out of the woodwork. And they have. Fortunately, they're still over there. They're coming here. How would you know that? Have you looked at the border crossing lately in the south to the States there? Yeah. They're already there. And you're going to have different factions of them. But at the end of the day, they are all just death cults. You can't reason with them. You can't logic with them. It's kill or be killed at that point. The DHS will get wiped out within a few months. Easy. Why? Guys are just going to they're going to give up. They're going to go home, just like they do in Iraq, just like they did in... Why? Because they don't want their families killed. You know? And I'm not making threats. I'm saying if you are a DHS agent or an NSA agent, you're watching this, how could you not see this coming? You guys are preparing for your own demise in the very sense of you're allowing the biggest threat, the biggest terrorist threat to the United States is Barack Obama and his, it doesn't matter if it's, if Boehner would have won president, or not Boehner, but Romney would have won president. It doesn't matter because they're the same faction. It's still controlled by the bankers. You need to sever that tie from the bankers. And the best way is to put them in jail. Now, the bankers, again, this is one unique time in history that people don't understand. World War I, people don't, even till this day, which a debt we're still paying off. Many people do not realize that was fought because of bankers. The same Rothschild bankers that are around now, not the same people, but the same family line, they got it going, okay? The same Rockefellers and all them, they got it going. The same J.P. Morgans, they got it going, okay? World War II, guess what? They got it going. World War III, which is already, right now it's still an economic war, turning into a trade war. Putin fired that shot the other day. That's stage 2. Stage 2 usually sometimes goes on for years, and then you get a shooting war. But at the core of it, it's the bankers. It's the bankers. So, if we don't put the bankers in jail, we all die. It's that desperate. It is that desperate. When? Is it going to be a war this year, that next year, 5 years from now? I don't know. But there's not a single action we've been doing since 2010 to steer us away from war. We have not de-escalated anything. Look at old news clippings. What was going on in 2010? A lot of revolution. 2011, the world catches fire. We're going to... Future, let's say 5,000 years in the future, society has rebuilt itself. You're going to look back on this time and say, how did these people not see it coming? How did they not see that in 2010, rights were violated left, right, and center? How did they not see in 2008 that they should have put the corrupt bankers in jail? How did they not, 2008, 2009? How did they not see all the rioting and upheaval and food shortages and genocide in 2011? How did they not catch on to that? 2012, how did they not realize how many people had died from starvation because of inflation? How did they not realize almost all of Europe was in a depression by this time? 2013, how did they not realize that by boxing in Russia around the Crimea and the rest of Ukraine, that building up the NATO around the borders and provoking them and surrounding China and Japan, China in the South Pacific, that they didn't realize that this was going to lead to a very confrontational shooting war. 2014, when the dollar collapsed, how did they not know that they were going to war for, 2014, how did they not going to war over resources and the trade war and the currency war and the shift in the paradigm of going from the US dollar to the Chinese dollar? How did they not realize that? And then in 2015, how did they not see the warnings with the radar? And good day, hi and welcome. I gotta be quiet, cuz the fat cat on the floor is sleeping. Hey, Gazoo, are you sleeping? Gazoo, are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? Oh, sorry, buddy, I didn't know you were sleeping. Sorry about that. My bad. Now my dog's out. All right. Okay. So anyway, World War III update. Animals interrupting my... You can't even plan that. Anyway, okay, so George Bush did a really, really horrible job. He did a horrible job. He didn't finish what he started. Ew, thank you. He leaves Iraq intact, okay? There's still people left alive. He didn't kill them all. So now Obama has to finish the job. Jeez. Think about that, Thank God we got a Nobel Peace Prize winner out there to make sure that they're going to, well, even though Obama says, we don't really think bombing is going to be the answer. We're not going to put troops on the ground. They're going to have to work it out for themselves. This is great. But we're still going to bomb the snot balls out of them anyway. Thank God for a Democrat in the office over there. Yeah, it's sarcasm. I mean, why do they hate these poor people so much? Like, oh, but they're terrorists over there. Yeah, but they're over there. It is, I agree with Obama. Yes, that's what I've been saying all along. You have to let them work it out for themselves. So while they're trying to work it out for themselves, why the heck are you bombing the crap out of them? How about you just let things settle down? But you see, that's not the point of it. What's going on in Iraq about ISIS, number one, and you almost get the truth out of the mainstream media where they're saying, well, the weapons are pretty much American-made weapons that the ISIS guys pretty much stole from the Iraqi military that was trained by the U.S. military. You remember what I talked about in previous videos about training the people you got to fight in the future? Well, these are those people. So anyway, long story short, they're basically admitting, well, I mean, question number one is, why did the Iraqi military just basically step aside and allow these people to take the weapons? Simple, because they were in on it on the whole. There was never a plan for peace there. It's all tribal wars. It's never going to change. And if it does change, it will only change if those people finally get it that they don't have to be killing each other. But that said, should we just do nothing? What about the women and children? Okay, you got terrorist group A killing these group of people over here. That's bad enough. Now, let's add some JDAMs, democracy JDAMs in between that. Iraq, Afghanistan is an apocalyptic place to live. Like, a lot of people say, the apocalypse is coming. No, it's already here. It's just not everywhere, but it's in a lot of countries. Most people around the world are living in Mad Max kind of conditions. The majority of the planet lives in Mad Max kind of conditions. Not peace, not law and order, Mad Max, survival of the fittest, survival of the cruelest. That's what most people live under. Afghanistan is a tough country. It's a hard country. It's never really known true peace in a way. You go back thousands of years, there's always been tribal wars. However, they did have points up until the 1970s where most of these Middle Eastern countries, hated each other in peace, and only when one group would cross the line in territory of another that they would shoot at each other. But now it's just everywhere. It's everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And again, it's all death cults, basically. It doesn't matter what name you give them, Al-Qaeda, ISIS. And basically, Al-Qaeda turned into Al-Nusra Front, which was the Free Syrian Army, which basically hijacked the Free Syrian Army and killed those guys off. And, and then because Al-Nusra Front started becoming too Al-Qaeda, they basically changed their name to ISIL and ISIS, and now it's the Islamic Republic, or the Islamic State is what they call it. So they keep changing it, but it's really the majority of them are the same guys that are running around. Yes, there's different factions. There's the Sunnis, there's the Shiites, you have Alawites, you have Wahhabists, you have, there's about 20 different types of Muslim, tribes out there or more that are usually the Sunni Shiite one is the big one. There's the Kurds, but they're all really the same people. They just have a different spin on the Quran and whatever have you, and how they pray is slightly different. But it's like the difference between, Christian and Christian and whatever spin-off religions from Christianity, and newborn religion, United, Trinity, all those different churches and stuff like that. They basically pray into the same thing, but they're praying it a little different. Now, that and the tribal part of it is basically land claim. Basically, that's the tribal part of it. So that's where a lot of this fighting has come from. It's tribal wars, and that can only be worked out amongst the tribes. An example would be back here in Canada. Pre 500 years ago, before the white man got here, there was all kinds of tribal wars. In fact, at one point there was over 600 or almost close to 1,000 different native languages in this country. And one tribe would absorb another. For example, the Crow and the Inuit never got along. The Algonquin and the Huron never got along. That type of thing. And there's still bad blood between some of these tribes, but they're not killing each other anymore. They've worked things out. But they worked things out. They worked out, okay, let's have peace between the tribes because just don't cross our